Here. Most of her life, choices have been pursuing, cultivating, and expressing the undeniably passion, resulting in more than 30 years of teaching children, mentoring, and counseling clients of all ages. Right as it may sound, nothing gives her as much fulfillment as making a difference in lives and individuals and families.
Sorry for that. I'm back. Sorry. Okay, she put up her own school and has been advocating inclusion in the community for many decades now. Her school, Integrated Center for the Young, is known as one of the pioneers of inclusive education in the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a virtual warm applause to teacher Melanie Kathleen San Pedro Alejandro.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Okay. So okay, I'll just wait for my slides. Thank you. Okay, may we move on to the next slide, please? Okay. So, very simply defined, inclusion is a belief that everyone belongs. It's a philosophy that values diversity and as such welcomes everyone. So in education in particular, inclusion is the belief that all children should learn and participate together with their peers in general education classrooms amidst a culture of absolute acceptance and celebration of diversity for the benefit of all. Wow, that's really a mouthful. No? So maybe in just like in the true spirit of inclusion and individualization, let us break down the definition and simplify it. So why all children? Because education is every child's right. And simply because it's the right thing to do. As educators, we commit to helping all students, not just the promising ones, but especially those who have difficulties and are challenged. Why together with their peers? Because being with peers affords a multitude of opportunities to learn age-appropriate and developmentally appropriate physical skills, cognitive skills, language skills, behavior, social skills, such as emotion regulation, conflict resolution, real-life skills that will be useful and crucial in adulthood. And then, why general education classrooms? Because these are the natural settings and contexts where all these learning opportunities and interactions take place. Represents the bigger natural world where children belong, includes play areas, cafeteria, home, community, as opposed to clinical settings or resource rooms, right? So there are a myriad opportunities to interact with others, practice skills, develop talents, and to belong. Okay, why culture of absolute acceptance? So we need to have a supportive and nurturing community of individuals who share a sense of respect, belonging, and understanding. So it should be a comfortable, accepting, safe, supportive space, regardless of physical setting. It is the inclusive culture and this particular therapeutic climate that are critical. Celebration of diversity, so everyone has something to contribute. So everyone has strengths to share. Right? And for the benefit of all, because when education is truly inclusive, it can actually benefit all learners, not only the challenged learners. The aim of inclusive education is to ensure that all students are treated fairly and get equal opportunities. So there is a fundamental commitment to support and address the individual needs of each child. Now, what are the benefits of inclusion? So why should we do it? Of course, for students with special needs, we don't. Everyone knows that it's more beneficial. It offers a sense of belongingness. That's very, very important to them. Belonging to a class, to a school, to a community. It gives them equal access to learning opportunities available for regular students. It provides a welcoming and accommodating environment where they can learn and develop. And it facilitates development of friendships and other nurturing relationships, which are very, very crucial and will help sustain them later on in adult life. There will be appropriate peer role models for academic, social, and behavior skills. And it boosts their self-worth. It affirms their unique strengths and capabilities. And it increases their chances of inclusion in future environments, which is very, very important. So their inclusive education placement in childhood will prepare them for inclusion in adulthood also. So what about for regular students? Are there benefits to inclusion? Definitely, yes. It offers early opportunities to experience and appreciate social diversity. Imagine, at very young ages, children cultivate respect and unconditional positive regard for others with diverse characteristics. It develops a sense of self-empowerment for the regular children because they know that they can make a difference for others and for society. It develops empathetic skills, develops meaningful friendships, and prepares the students for adult life in an inclusive society. So what we're doing now again, at this point in their lives, is helping prepare them for their adult inclusive society. Okay? And also, there are greater academic outcomes. Children who are in inclusive schools do better academically. So, and all students' needs are better met. Just like what Miss Jo mentioned earlier, the picture exchange system, having a timer or a token economy. These are strategies that would also benefit regular children. So not just children with special needs. So if a teacher utilizes these strategies, all students benefit. How about for teachers and staff? Okay. What are the benefits? We have a lot. No? So it increases opportunities to experience and appreciate social diversity. It gives teachers and staff opportunities to recognize every student's unique strengths. Okay. It makes them become better at individualizing instruction. It enhances their abilities to be creative and resourceful in dealing with teaching challenges. So imagine how much better, what better skills teachers would have if they're used to teaching in an inclusive environment. It enhances accountability skills. It combats monotony. Definitely, you will not be bored. It strengthens collaborative skills because as a teacher in an inclusive setting, you have to work together with other teachers, with other specialists, and with the families also. So it definitely makes you a better teacher. What about benefits of inclusion for families? I have encountered many parents for the first time who have come to me very, very disappointed, very, very saddened because they've been turned away so many times by other schools. Other schools would say that they're not equipped, they're not trained to handle children with special needs. They don't know what to do, or plain, they just don't accept children with special needs. So imagine if there is a school that would accept these families and would welcome them. So these families would feel valued for who they are. They would feel that their specific needs are being met and that they matter. So at the same time, it also increases parent participation and accountability because the parents and the other family members, even grandparents and nannies, siblings, they feel that they are active participants in the intervention program and that they are part of the solution, which is very important. We are empowering them. And also we're giving them a chance for greater integration into the community because they're already, by accepting them, they're already part of the school community, which makes it easier for them to transition to the bigger community later on. So they also have access to a support system that the school can give them. Okay. What about the community? Okay. The benefits of inclusion for the community is that it promotes the civil rights of all individuals. So social values of equality, respect are promoted, thereby lessening the impact of harassment and bullying. Okay. So these are decreased. It teaches socialization, collaborative skills. It builds supportiveness. and increases the ability to appreciate diversity and inclusion on a broader level. It increases members' civic participation, employment, and enriches community life. Okay, so now that we know what the benefits are, okay, I'd like to talk to you about the requisites for successful inclusion. Because it's not simply a matter of, okay, we'll be inclusive. No, there have to be certain requirements that are met for successful inclusion. So first, there must be solid policies and procedures that are already in place. And when I say policies and procedures, we are talking about guidelines, the thrusts, what are the objectives, the approaches, what are the procedures for implementation, feedback mechanisms, even staff training, and these must all be well-defined, clearly articulated, and consistently implemented by the entire school staff. Also, there must be a continuum of supports and services needed by the students and their families. These should be available already, existing already. So aside from classroom learning, services offered may range from occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, counseling, social skills training, parent support groups, provision of learning support for the students such as shadow teaching. Because without the provision of these supports and services, teachers would have a very difficult time achieving their intervention goals. So even teachers and intervention providers themselves must have a continuum of supports available to them, such as opportunities for continuing education, debriefing, support groups, recreation, burnout prevention to ensure their lengthy and wholehearted involvement in the intervention process. Now, another requirement is reduced class size. Okay? Inclusion would be extremely difficult, almost impossible, if there are too many students whose very unique needs must all be taken into account. So there must be more teaching and non-teaching staff to address the needs of a reduced number of students. Usually at the Integrated Center of the Young, we have an average of around 10 students in a class with 1 to 2 teachers. Next, we need to have genuine individualization. Because children with special needs vary considerably in their symptoms and in their behavior, their specific needs and abilities. Even if they have the same diagnosis, it doesn't mean that they would behave and they would have the same needs. So they need a truly individualized intervention program that considers their unique resources and strengths, their goals and targets that the child with special needs and that the family may have, and that this would affect how the intervention plan would be formulated. We can implement genuine individualization through physical accommodations. Can be as simple as adjustments to the physical structure of the classroom, maybe as simple as a strategic seat plan, where proximity to the teacher or the board is considered, or where optimization of interactions with classmates is also considered. Okay, we can individualize through instructional accommodations, such as provision of appropriate and parallel instructional content, adjustments in instructional pace, the delivery of the lessons, the strategies that will be used, even the books that will be prescribed, modifying lessons as needed, and choosing the appropriate assessment in naturalistic context that would elicit the student's best performance. We can also individualize through social accommodations. So this would entail an intentional creation of a nurturing environment. So as teachers, as school staff, we need to create opportunities for interactions and for relationships to flourish, because this may not occur naturally. So we have to create opportunities. So we have to also be sensitive to the potential of certain situations that we may note that, like there are a couple of children who are using the same toy, so that can be a potential for interaction already. So we facilitate that interaction for the child with special need and to interact more with the typically developing children. Now, a final requirement to all those that I've mentioned is this very important one: the conviction, the belief that children with special needs are valuable members of society, and they can definitely succeed at overcoming their difficulties. Because without this conviction, without this unwavering belief, any attempt at inclusion will will yield dismal results. So we have best practices that we have come up with in over 2 decades of practicing inclusion and evolving our program into what it is today. These are what our findings are. Okay, so the ideal of inclusion itself is not enough to meet lasting positive outcomes. So we need to outline first who are the stakeholders who will matter for the inclusive program to work. So we have to have a systemic and well-defined framework to support our inclusive program. So for the stakeholders, we have, okay, as you can see, the child with special needs himself, family, school staff, peers, child care specialists, and community members, okay, which I'll be tackling individually. Okay, for the child with special needs, okay, many of them, especially the older ones, they can be engaged. They can be involved in their own intervention because there's no one better than the child with special needs himself who knows about his particular difficulties. He can identify what he would like to be able to do, how he can be helped to achieve his goals. So a decent intervention program should tap the child with special needs himself as a resource and believe that he is an indispensable contributor to his own development. Okay, we can adjust this depending on the age of the child, on the abilities of the child, as to how we can consult them and give them the chance to be active in their own intervention. Okay. When it comes to family, okay, particularly in the Philippines, parents have unfortunately remained a barely utilized source of educational support, which is for me a tragic waste of valuable resources. Because research shows that students learn and achieve more and are more active in school when their families are involved. Family members understand the needs of the child with special needs most. They can offer the most support for extended periods, for longer periods than us, right? Than other intervention providers. The family has access to opportunities for teaching, rehearsing, and reinforcing skills that may not be available in other intervention contexts. And moreover, a family's level of commitment and involvement in their child's intervention will most often be unmatched. Okay, so parents and other family members do need additional training and guidance to enable them to thrive during their difficult journey. So they may also need assistance in meeting the needs of their other children. So sometimes they need to be reminded that they have to take care of themselves also and of their other children. Some of them may need help strengthening the marital relationship, finding ways to augment family income, okay, identifying, tapping, and acquiring resources, and many other areas. Okay. Another stakeholder is the school staff, okay, teaching and non-teaching staff. They exert great influence over the outcome of inclusion as they are able to create, they're able to fashion, direct, and transform the very nature and outcomes of these endeavors on a daily basis. So aside from the required skills, training, and credentials that teachers must have, research shows that among all the factors, attitudes are the single most important determinant of success in an inclusion program. As such, all teaching and non-teaching staff must have the following values, beliefs, and attitudes for inclusion to work. So, of course, there must be unconditional acceptance of the child, utter respect for the child, okay, reverence for the child's space. We have to respect that. Then appreciation for the child's smallest accomplishments. There must be optimism, authenticity, okay, a collective mentality, okay, respect for other team members, and sense of humor. I always focus on sense of humor because what we do is very hard work. It's very taxing. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of disappointments and frustrations. And we have to be able to sustain our energies and our efforts. So it is a sense of humor that can take us through this. So that we need to lighten up. We need to see things from a different perspective to enable us to continue doing what we do. Okay. And also, again, the belief that the child with special needs can and will overcome his difficulties, and that he's an asset to the community. Okay. Okay, so attitudes should be cheerful, joyful, and highly attuned to the child, as in what a child is feeling, when a child is off, or when a child is just seems to be about to go into a tantrum. So we also must be warm, energetic, creative. We have to be very creative, imaginative, and persistent. We will not give up. We need to be flexible. Like if something doesn't work, then let's try something else. Okay. We need to be versatile, that we can take on different roles. We are not just teachers. We have to be so many different roles to these children. And we have to be confident of our capacity to serve others efficiently. Okay. We have to be open to learn from others and to try new ideas. Okay. And we have to be willing to devote extra effort and go beyond the call of duty to meet students' needs. Okay. Now, on to a very interesting stakeholder, peers. Okay. Peers are often overlooked resource in the implementation of inclusion programs. Okay. Very often, typically developing peers can provide useful information to adults about potentially effective techniques, about individual characteristics, in addition to behavioral and communication needs of their peer with special needs. And these peers can be taught to provide appropriate scaffolds to the child with special needs. They can be taught to give prompts to facilitate the development of pertinent skills. But it's very important to stress to the typically developing peers that their relationship with children with special needs does not imply a caregiving nature, nor is it one-sided. This is very important. That benefits are not experienced only by the child with special needs. It's impressed upon their peers that they are in a mutually beneficial relationship wherein one learns from the other and benefits from knowing each other. So the child with special needs is never portrayed as a victim who needs to be rescued by the more able peer. Difficulties of all children are discussed in terms of what they cannot do by themselves yet, but what they can do with a little help from others. Okay, and how that help is anticipated to diminish in intensity as all children are expected to improve. So emphasis is placed on the strengths of each student and how these strengths can be utilized to improve the quality of life of all students and of the entire community. Okay. Of course, childcare specialists are also stakeholders. Okay. For inclusion to be effective, the assistance, involvement, and formal support of various childcare specialists are necessary. So medical professionals such as pediatricians, psychologists, psychiatrists, occupational therapists, they can all provide support in an integrated and cohesive manner. Specifically, these childcare specialists can benefit from each other's expertise. They can supplement the home and the school's efforts. They can provide consultation and training to other intervention partners and make appropriate recommendations to meet the child's changing needs. So, close collaboration is a must among each other, among all the intervention partners. Okay, so that's very, very important. Okay, and another stakeholder would be the community members themselves. They may not know it. The support of the local community is particularly important in developing countries, especially to sustain efforts on inclusion. Since becoming a productive member of the community is the end goal of inclusion, then the program must therefore utilize the larger community as one of its resources already. So home, school, community collaboration elicits community involvement and utilizes the community as the venue for instruction. So this enables the students to apply their skills functionally, giving them a fuller appreciation of their skills and providing them opportunities to generalize their skills to genuine, naturally occurring settings. So we encourage them to interact with people in supermarkets, malls, parks, restaurants, and other community places. So similar to the philosophy espoused regarding children with special needs and school readiness, it is not the child with special need who must be prepared to enter and be part of the larger community. Rather, it is the community that should be prepared and equipped to accept the child with special need with all his strengths, resources, needs, and demands. And since we are the ones immersed in the inclusion process, it is our responsibility to educate and enlighten the rest of the community. Through our efforts, the larger community and society will also enjoy the benefits of knowing and sharing their lives with individuals with special needs. Okay, so what is crucial to the success of the inclusion program is that all stakeholders must adhere to the same philosophy and have the same goals, even though the context in which they operate may be different. What's most important is the consistency and establishment of continuity among all the efforts, approaches, and strategies utilized by the various stakeholders. Now, for the inclusion program to be effective, aside from engaging all the necessary stakeholders, it must also have the following qualities. First, it must be unified. From the core philosophy of the administrator of the school to the strategies utilized by the teachers, even to the attitudes of cafeteria personnel in their interactions with students. All decisions, actions, and efforts are integrated and unified. And for this to happen, strong leadership from the school head is a must. Okay, holistic, must address all aspects of a child's development. Okay, all aspects, meaning physical, cognitive, language, psychosocial, self-help, moral, spiritual, as each of these aspects is intricately interwoven with each other, and improvements or deficits in one aspect would influence and are in turn influenced by other aspects of development. Okay, mutualistic, okay, may sounds like a fancy word, but all it means is that the stakeholders must have a symbiotic relationship, a relationship that's beneficial to everyone. Okay. Participatory involves the active participation of stakeholders, including the child with special needs, right? Many inclusion programs work for the benefit of the child, but not so much with the child as a person with agency and with the capacity to guide the direction of his own intervention and to be part of the solution. So in our model, the child with special needs is not merely a passive recipient of intervention. He is an active decision maker, an evaluator, a planner, a provider of support, and an invaluable resource. Other stakeholders, such as parents, families, and community members, also assume more participatory roles in the entire inclusion process. And then, transdisciplinary, okay, we need a transdisciplinary team and approach with the child with special needs in the midst, and educators, other school personnel, medical doctors, okay, psychologists, psychiatrists, speech and language pathologists, etc. Okay, the peers, the larger community, and the local government even, all actively supporting the child. While everyone has a different role to play, each party is equally valuable and has an irreplaceable function to fulfill. Okay, and then integrated. The approach should be integrated. It's very useful to make optimal use of learning opportunities across all aspects of a child's life. So this gives the student the chance to rehearse multiple skills simultaneously, okay, so that there's faster development and mastery of skills rather than targeting one skill at a time in specific contexts. For example, several professionals are responsible for multiple targets rather than just having one professional work on one skill while another professional works on another possibly unrelated skill. So an example of integration would be incorporating social goals within a speech and language instruction session. Okay, and of course, the program should be dynamic and flexible. The program can and will change as needed in response to changing needs, changing situations, the gains made by the child with special needs, the evolving targets. Okay. All people are dynamic beings, so our situations are constantly changing. So even disability itself has a dynamic nature. Okay, so we must be able to constantly and rigorously monitor the child's progress all throughout the process. We have to exchange feedback, evaluate, recalibrate, realign goals, discard others, etc. Okay. Now, um, in spite of knowledge of what is ideal and what are considered best practices at the moment, inclusion programs, no matter how well supported and well intentioned, are very difficult to maintain. It must be intensely personalized and tailored to meet specific needs of students at specific periods in their development. So what may work for one child may not work for another. Additionally, what worked for one child at one time may not work for the same child at a different time. So it's vital to have a massive storehouse of strategies and techniques and the willingness and flexibility to undertake whatever courses of action will yield the most positive outcomes. Now, as a developing country, we have very limited resources, and without government support, inclusion entails very high costs to both schools and families. In addition, inclusion programs are bound by constraints brought about by certain realities and pragmatic considerations, including restrictions on schedules of schedule of the child, schedule of the parents, inability of all intervention providers to be present during evaluation, lack of access to certain resources, work demands of parents, logistic constraints, staff availability. These are but a few of the possible reasons why the implementation of an inclusive program may not match the plan to a T. Okay. But what can be realistically expected is that all stakeholders extend their best efforts to do all they can for the good of the child. And when done properly, this is what can be expected. Everyone, please meet Rafa, 24 years old. He's very gentle and wise, very good-natured and polite. He enjoys traveling, loves to go biking, sometimes with friends, sometimes alone. He drives their family car and cheerfully does errands for the family. He has a mind for business, selling jams, tocino, and other products he has learned to make in our life skills training program. He's now applying for work at our school. Oh, by the way, he has autism. And I would like to share part of his cover letter for his job application. Rafa says, I am a person with autism who is high functioning with multi-acquired skills from the different programs I have undergone. If I should be given the chance and the opportunity to work, I would do my best to contribute to help students of ICY, most especially children with special needs, to reach their highest potentials. Needless to say, he is hired. We would be so fortunate to have him as part of our staff. So to wrap up, inclusive education is not just for some children. Being included is not something that a child must be ready for. All children are at all times ready to attend inclusive schools and classrooms. Their participation is not something that must be earned. And why should all schools practice inclusion? Because everyone benefits from it, and simply because it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Miss Melanie, that was really amazing, no?
Thank you
Thank you,
po.
Miss Melanie. So that was really, how will I say it? I am really inspired again. So what you shared to us really also reflects how Miss Raquel was able to inspire also other people. So if we will also do what you also mentioned this time, for sure in the Philippines, it will be a better place for our PWDs, no? But for sure in your school, you're doing it well. So I hope other schools also will replicate that. Thank you so much for sharing. I
Thank
learned a
you.
lot. What about you, Buddy? What can you say about the presentation of Miss Mel?
I have a child with ADHD and I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Now, if you have burning questions to our speakers, please type them in the Facebook comment section.
All right. If you have comments or questions for our two speakers, you may type it in our chat box or in our Facebook comments. May I read first? Okay. All right. There is a question here for Miss Mel. Good afternoon from Jan Ariel Tortosa. First question for Ma'am Melanie Alejandro. Meron po bang panukalang batas tungkol sa special needs at special education para sa mga bata? Thank you po.
Actually, we have laws and they have been in place for quite some. We have the Magna Carta. Actually, hindi ko lang masabi no, but the specific orders are no. But we have laws. We have enough laws. Actually, it's the implementation of the laws that needs to be improved. So. I think it's every parent's right, actually, to assert that their children with special needs have a right to be in school. They can fight. They can fight for their right. They shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to because schools are mandated to accommodate children with special needs. That is part of our mandate. But unfortunately, the reality is. Sometimes we have to assert our rights. Yan. So, hindi nagkukulang sa laws. We have enough, actually.
All right. Thank you, Miss Mel. We will just ask you again to answer some questions later. As Miss Abadi, Miss Anna, can you also share to our viewers what we are going to do with our commercials?
Follow-up question for Ma'am Melanie. Sa pinapanood ng ilang dokumentaryo tungkol sa batang may PWD disability, ano ang pagkakaiba, yung condition at kapansanan tulad ng isang bata or matanda?
I'm hoping that I interpreted the question correctly. No? Siguro the difference is it can go different ways. Like as an adult, diba, if a child's special needs are not addressed, the disabilities and the challenges might worsen. Okay, especially if the child growing up has learned maladaptive behaviors and responses. No, but also differently, it can go the other way, where an adult would already would have learned how to manage, let's say, manage certain behaviors or control certain impulses that would make his disability less evident. So it can go both ways. I think maybe if there was a more specific, let's say, disorder or and that you could outline, maybe I could answer better. But I hope I answered it. But it's very crucial that intervention be given very early on. If intervention is given when the child is still very young, the possibilities, the potential for improvement, for recovery, or for overcoming challenges is really, really huge. So that's very important.